WeatherCentral.ca. Better tools, better grain. This report is brought to you by Weather Innovations Incorporated and sponsored by Pride Seeds, Bayer Crop Science, Grain Farmers of Ontario, and Great Lakes Grain. In today's report, we look at the spring and summer of 2012 in Ontario and see just how dry it was.
Hello, I'm Rory Sweeting. I'm with Weather Innovations Incorporated, and I'm here outside our office in Chatham, Ontario. Welcome to the very first WeatherCentral.ca video report. This is something we'll be doing in addition to the site-specific weather and agronomy tools that are available on the site already. Today we're going to discuss Ontario's severely dry summer and examine the specific dry and wet periods through a series of rainfall maps. You've probably already seen some of our maps that we've posted this year on the site. I thought I'd start off by telling you a little bit more about how those maps get put together. We collect data from our network of wireless weather stations like this one across the province, including temperature and relative humidity, wind speed and direction, and of course rainfall. We also have about 350 manual rain gauges located in fields throughout the province. And we take all of that data and gather it together and put it into our central database here in Chatham. So what we end up with is about 500 points of data from across the province, which we also supplement with Environment Canada data when it's available. And then what we do is called making the data dance, we like to say. We'll transform it into GIS enhanced maps like this one. So what we're looking at here is an illustration of the rainfall across the province between April 1st and August 31st. And it's a percent normal map, which actually shows the deviation from the normal amount of rain for each location based on 30-year normals. It's easy to see which areas are wetter and drier based on the color scale, which shows a range. For instance, the dark blue section is 300% and above, and the dark red section is 20 to 0% of normal, which is basically bone dry. So let's take a closer look at this map and find out a little bit more about what happened over these 5 months. You can see the dryness at a glance from this map with the large amounts of orange, or 60 to 80% the usual rain, and there's a few patches as low as only 40%. The lighter yellow areas aren't quite as bad, they got about 80% of normal, and there's one lone green spot down near Dresden and north through Lambton County. They actually are the only spot that got 100% normal rain throughout the 5 months. Something that I should mention that's important is that the rains this year were very geographically isolated for the most part. So for grain and corn growers especially, it meant in some cases a few kilometers meant the difference between good healthy crops like this one with good yield potential, or ones like this that had moisture stress and maybe didn't pollinate due to the lack of rain, or something else went wrong. And the 5-month map that we just looked at is actually somewhat misleading because it's fairly uniform in color and doesn't show the periods of real severe drought. So what we're going to do next is break it down a bit further and look at some maps for both wet and dry periods, which will really help show you the whole story. In this first map, you can see that it was extremely dry. We had about 20% of normal moisture or less almost everywhere, which actually made for excellent early planting. Farmers were quite happy and anticipating a great start to the season. For the next 20 days until about May 9th, we had plenty of rain, nearly everyone getting about 100% or more. In Smiths Falls and Perth area, they got over double the normal amount, as did a very small pocket near Caledon. The region from Goderich to Fergus, Simcoe and London was a little dry, but still got about 80%. And in North Bay, Lake Nipissing, they had about 60 to 80% of normal, and they were the driest. At this point early in the season, expectations were very high and everyone was predicting a bumper crop, actually. Following that, beginning May 10th, was the start of a 22-day stretch that was severely dry, with large sections below 20% of normal again. Down in the southwest, however, small areas around Dresden and also near Highgate and Muirkirk, they actually got about 100% of the normal amount. There were also a few little nooks of good rain in the east, around Winchester, Cornwall, and Alexandria. The lack of rain rattled nerves, but the young plants didn't need that much water, and they were able to draw from the good moisture reserves that were in the ground. June got off to a great start when the rains came back in abundance for about 12 days, just in time. The majority of the province got about 160% or more than their normal, with the exception of the southwestern tip.
At nearly 300% of normal was the Coburg area up to through Highway 7 along to Charlotte Lake and through Kingston. And then down in Leamington and Point Pelee, they missed out and got less than 40% of normal. And notice in that dry zone that from Dresden to Wallaceburg and north, they actually got a normal amount. The middle of June wasn't quite as good in most areas, with somewhat of a mixed bag between the 13th and the 24th of the month. This was the start of the real trouble for the Ottawa Valley. And now all you have to do is follow Highway 17 from about Deep River all the way to Hawkesbury to see the results. The entire region had about 40% of normal or less, and below 20% in the eastern corner from about Cornwall up. And it was the same situation between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. The entire Niagara Peninsula, all the way down to Long Point, was also 40% normal or less, and in the Thorold area it was less than 20%. The rain was normal, however, from about Oshawa up through the Kawartha Lakes and along Highway 28, and as well, here's Dresden again, northeast to Mitchell getting a decent amount. Now here we get to the really killer period, which was the end of June through to July 24th. Basically 30 days straight of almost no rain in large portions of the province. Eastern Ontario and Niagara went from bad to worse, and they were now at about 42 days dry in total. But once again, however, the southwest point was spared. The Blenheim, West Lorne and Glencoe areas all along the Thames River. And there's Dresden again, all the way to Corona, getting normal amounts of rain for those 30 days. And this is the point at which the season was basically already over for many farmers.
So looking at those 30 days of severe dryness, Carla Jackson, our resident corn expert, is here to tell us a little bit more about why the corn crop would have been so greatly affected by that dry period. Carla, why don't you tell us?
Yep. That 30-day period was June 25th to July 24th, and during that 30 days, some early and late planted corn was tasseling and silking, and rain is very crucial during silking, and when you don't have the rain, there's decreased pollination. So missed rains, decreased pollination, which equals decreased yield at the end of the harvest season.
And then in through the end of July, it finished with relief finally for most, although it was too little too late in many cases. Also note that this map is only for 7 days. We had one good day of rain on July 26th, the heaviest between Lake Ontario and north, from Oakville to about Kingston. And further south got a big dumping over the 27th and the 28th. And again, there's Dresden, and pretty much all of Kent and Lambton counties getting a fair amount. And the Ottawa Valley, which had been suffering severely by now after 49 days, was still below normal and nearly dry east of Highway 16. Lastly, we'll look briefly at August, which was dry, but not as bad as July. Most everywhere received at least 50% of the normal rain for the month. Prince Edward County, however, was quite dry, getting less than 40% of the usual amount. And let's take one last peek at Kent County again, and there's Dresden, right in the center of another rainy spot. They were sure the lucky ones over the whole summer.
Now, here in Chatham, we've also been quite lucky. We had decent amounts of rain at very timely periods, so as a result, we have outstanding looking cornfields like this one, with tall plants and a very high yield potential. However, the situation elsewhere, as you probably know, is quite dire. And in some cases, farmers have actually turned to just silage or even plowed their fields over and are going to wait for next year now. But the good news is that this field is reaching maturity, as predicted by the WeatherCentral.ca corn growth stage calendar. And now is also an excellent time to check the dry down calculator, which gives you an estimated harvest date based on your desired moisture loss. Both of those things are powered by your own planting date, which you input into the site. So if you haven't registered yet, go and check it out now. You can plot each field individually, as well as get a ton of site-specific crop and weather info. Check back soon for another update once harvest is wrapping up, and thanks for watching this report from WeatherCentral.ca. Better tools, better grain.